Hello.
Hello. Still not liking these camera angles. Facebook looks better than YouTube, so sorry about that. Want to make sure that people can hear us because I'm using a different microphone than I normally do. And so I am not in California, as you might have guessed. Let's just hope that works. Okay. I think we got everything set up. So if you can't hear us, please put a comment that you can't hear us. But otherwise, there we go. I was wondering what that is. Oh no, we're not looking.
It's perfect. No, it's okay.
Okay. So I'm in, we're in your city, your town.
Yes, my hometown.
You want to close this?
No.
We're out of sorts here. Why don't you introduce where we are, since it's your city?
Sure. So this is Oradea. It's
In what country?
city in Romania, which is in Eastern Europe, just to make sure. It's a very beautiful city. It's not very big, but I really appreciate it. I believe that we have a very beautiful architecture. And more important than that, the people are very, very kind.
Yes.
I'm sure Damon can confirm this.
It's my first time here, and I can definitely confirm this. Everybody, especially your family, has been very nice. And in case you're wondering who this is Yulia Tiduce.
Yes, that's fine.
I like to stress the last part of it because it sounds very Italian to me. Tiduce.
Yes, but my name is Romanian, so I'm Romanian.
She's also my assistant. And can I tell them who else you are?
Sure.
She's also my girlfriend. And we met last summer. And
Yes.
We're not going to just talk about nothing here. We're going to get to the point here. We're going to talk about goals and goal setting. And that's why you want to stick around. But I guess we were rushing to get here and get everything set up. So we're actually still settling in. So I apologize for that. But we're going to talk about goal setting and right ways and wrong ways to do that. And if you saw my last video that I published, I talked about that and basically what most people do wrong with goal setting. And I know this because I did it wrong for a long time, or I did it in a way that didn't help me achieve my goals. And there's definitely a way that we can do this where you're ensuring that you will achieve your goals, but in a different way, and a different way that most people think of. So anyway, she's going to ask me some questions along the way, as if
I'm young and I have plenty of choices ahead, and I'm trying to set up my goals.
I was trying to say this nicely. She's young, so she doesn't have a tremendous amount of life experience, but for someone who's only 21, I would say you have, because she's traveled to the US twice. That's how we met. And all on your own, just sort of decided to pick up and go do these things and have these adventures, which I admire a lot about her. And it's also something I love to do, which is travel. And I was amazed that she travels alone. She doesn't have anybody to go with. And that's often something I'll do. And whenever I travel alone, that's the question I get most often is, why are you traveling alone? And the thing is that I love doing it so much that I'm not going to let it stop me if I don't have somebody to go with. So I was very impressed that she does that. So she likes to do things, or when she wants to do something, one of the things that I like about her, she doesn't let anything stop her. And so I think is good for this goal setting talk about how to make sure you achieve your goals and how to make sure that nothing stands in your way. And I think that's really what happens for most people is they set a goal and some sort of obstacle, whether it manifests externally or internally, shows up. And what I mean by internally is we have all these internal obstacles. We can call that resistance, which slows us down, which gets in our way. And a lot of times we quit. And a lot of times that is really unconscious. So we don't know why we stop doing something. We don't know why sometimes we sabotage ourselves. We don't know why we suddenly procrastinate on something that we really want to do, to the point that we eventually quit. So any questions or thoughts?
Yes,
so far?
Actually, before going to the point when you have internal blocks in front of your goals, I would rather think that what if there's another goal that's standing in front of my main goal? Like I have too many goals and I cannot go for one because there's another goal that comes in the way. So what if the block is just another goal?
And that happens a lot. This is what we call an inner conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So one part of me seems to want one thing, and then there's another part of me that seems to want another thing. And what often happens is we don't get either because we get so caught up in the conflict, and an inner conflict will wear you out. It'll make you, it'll just drain your energy. It'll drain more your mental energy than anything else. And then you don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah, there's like that metaphor with chasing two rabbits. You want them both, but you end up not catching any of the rabbits.
Right. So how do we catch
at least
both?
One goal or both?
How do we catch both rabbits? And that really comes down to your values. If you know what your values are, and which is unconscious for most people, but your values are driving every decision that you make. When you understand what's driving your decisions, then if you go to your highest values, meaning you keep digging further and further, you keep going deeper and deeper with what it is that you want, then you'll find that the highest level values never conflict with each other. They will align to each other. There is a hierarchy to those values. And I don't mean that in the sense that Maslow talked about the hierarchy of values or the hierarchy of criteria. That actually is it's too confining. And we don't live that way. We're more of a hierarchy, because anytime you walk into a different situation, in a different context, your values are likely to shift. So when I'm hungry, my highest value is to eat, to put food into my stomach so I can survive. But once I'm full, I no longer have that value. So the value shifts. And so Maslow's hierarchy of values, though I like a lot of Maslow's work, it's too regimented. We need to be more flexible than that, and so we need to shift to a hierarchy. So acknowledging that your values will change and shift from situation to situation and context to context. And like I said, most people are not conscious of this, and this is why most of us make a lot of bad decisions. And we'll make enough bad decisions until we start making better decisions. But if we understand this stuff going in, we can save ourselves a lot of trouble. And the same goes on deciding what goal to pursue. So far, so good?
Yes. Please continue.
No other questions?
I'm good so far.
Okay.
How can I find my values then?
Yes. So we call it a value solicitation. And I've done multiple videos on this. And almost every training that I do, I include a value solicitation because it's that important. You really need to know why it is you're going after something. If you don't understand this, then expect inner conflict, expect inner resistance, expect that you only got about a 50-50 shot of achieving what it is that you want. If you really know what your goal is, then you have a pretty good shot at it. But if you don't know what's behind the goal, if you don't know what the value is that you're serving that's behind the goal, then it really makes it difficult to, we'll put it this way, it makes it really difficult to get what you want if you're not clear about what it is that you want. It makes it extremely difficult. And the only reason why I don't say it's impossible to get what you want if you don't know what it is, I would say because I've gotten what I wanted at times and didn't realize that it was what I wanted until I got it. So I leave that open. I'm not going to use an absolute here and say that there's no way you can there's no way you can get what you want if you don't know what it is. I've had the experience of getting what I want, even when I didn't know it. So that happens too. But I've also had the experience of getting what I wanted, but not realizing it because my goal was so specific and detailed, and I was so focused on the goal rather than the value behind it, that, and from a values perspective, I was actually getting what I wanted, but because I couldn't recognize it, because it looked differently than the goal that I had set, I couldn't enjoy it, and I lost it because I didn't know that I had it. And so some examples of this would be quality of life would be more of a value, but you might define quality of life as having, $1 million in the bank, 2 trips overseas every single year. You might have all these very detailed ways of thinking, well, once I have this, once I achieve this, then I will have the quality of life that I want. But the truth is that if you go to the values that make up your quality of life, you can experience those anytime, and you don't need to spend money. You don't need to even travel. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things, but you can fulfill your values most of the time immediately, your highest values. And so you can have everything that you want really all around you, but you can't recognize it because you keep thinking it needs to look like this, or I need to have these specific things in place. And so that is actually the problem with goals. Is goals are a great way to sort of set a marker for yourself and say, okay, this is where I want to get to. And if you do a values elicitation behind that and you understand what's driving that, then you're a lot more likely to get it. But what you're also very likely to do as well is recognize at a certain point, does that goal really give me what I want? Is it really going to fulfill me? Or did going halfway toward it really give me what I want, and then to continue to go the rest of the way would actually take me away from what's really important? And in the video that I did, that I published this last Wednesday, the example that I use is maybe I want to make $1 million in a year, and I get up to $500,000 a year, and I really have got everything that I want. For $500,000 a year, I get to do everything that I want. I've paid off my house, I've paid off my cars, whatever it is, that I have no debt. For me to push harder and go for that additional $500,000 a year would mean less time with my family, less time maybe doing a lot of the things that I actually do want to do. But because I set that goal and I said I was going to do it, I then become a slave to that goal. I become the servant of that goal, and that goal stops fulfilling me. It stops giving me really, truly what I want, the satisfaction and fulfillment and the well-being that I want in life. So at a certain point, you might realize that goal is really not going to serve me, and you need to throw it away. You need to throw it out. But if you don't know what your values are, we tend to overemphasize the goal, and then you always hear, well, make sure your goals are very detailed, very precise, very clear. And so if you put all your attention on that and not the value that's behind it, you can make yourself miserable achieving a goal. And then you get it and you say, okay, great, I got my goal, I'm excited. And that lasts, a few hours, maybe a day. And then now you feel empty because all of your emphasis was on that goal, and you thought that goal was supposed to give you something. And then you say, okay, what do I do now? And I'll set another goal, and then I'll suspend all the things that I enjoy doing, or I'll take time away from all the things that I enjoy doing to focus on achieving that goal. And so I spend another few months or a year or even years not enjoying life because I'm so focused on that goal. And then once again, I achieve it, I feel good for a few hours, and then I'm back where I was. And that's just no way to live, because really what you're doing is you're postponing living just to achieve this one goal. And like I said, you become a servant to that goal rather than the other way around. And your goals should serve you. Your goals should serve your values. And so you take emphasis off of that. It also, when you take emphasis off of that, it takes so much pressure off of you to perform or to. I think what a lot of people do, though, this emphasis is they attach their self-worth to it. And I think that's where I was getting at with this. When you attach your self-worth to it and you don't achieve it, what happens? You end up beating yourself up about it when you don't achieve it. That's the dark side of this. If you don't achieve it, then what? And you haven't elicited your values. You don't really know what's behind the goal, but you've put everything on this goal. Not achieving it can feel like you lack self-worth, like you're inadequate, and that's not a good place to be either. That's not going to serve you. That's not going to make you enjoy life. And by the way, if you want more precise details and plans on how to do what it is that I'm talking about, my membership program is we're still running a special for $1 just for the first month. It's not $1 a month after that, but for $1 for the first month, you can get started on this program, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about, because in the first lesson, I outline exactly how to do this, how to elicit your values and start planning out your goals, but doing it in a way that gives it context so that your emphasis isn't only on the goal. And this makes goals so much easier to achieve. It's like one of those things when you're so focused on something, and it creates this desperation, and it's almost like you're pushing it further and further away. I wish that dog would stop barking. And I kept finding this happening in my life over and over again. I wanted something so bad, and it felt like every time I set a goal, every time I decided I wanted something, and I would start working toward it, it felt like I was pushing it further and further away. And this was just like a mystery to me, and it frustrated me so much that I actually stopped setting goals. And then when I stopped setting goals, it actually made things easier. You still want to set goals. I'm not saying you shouldn't set goals, but when I took the emphasis off of something like so detailed, naturally I gravitated to the things that I valued and started creating more of that in my life. And I started thinking, okay, what's happening here? How is this happening when everybody's telling me I need to set goals? And I tried it, and it actually pushed these things further away. And it's like, when I stopped setting goals, it seems like I'm more likely to get the things that I want. How is that happening? And through learning NLP was when I really discovered what was happening and how to extract the process of getting what I wanted and being more conscious about it. And so this is where we start to get into things like The Secret and the Law of Attraction, which I'm very critical of, but I don't completely discount. I'm not throwing that out and saying that there's nothing to it. The something to it is this other side where if you don't put so much emphasis on a specific goal, but you know in general what fulfills you and what you enjoy, you will naturally gravitate to that. And so these things will tend to appear in your life. And you think, okay, well, what's happening here? And that's where this idea of the law of attraction comes in, where you're attracting what you want without having to work so hard for it. But the truth is, you are working toward it, whether a lot of times this can be unconscious, where you find yourself naturally gravitating to things, and you are putting in the effort, you are putting in the work, but you're just not conscious of it. And so it suddenly shows up and you go, oh, that's the law of attraction, and not realizing how you actually have worked toward this. And unconsciously you were driving toward it, you were moving toward it. But because you didn't like set a specific goal like people tell you to do, then it had the appearance of just appearing in your life.
Okay, so basically it's very important to know your values, and then setting goals will be easier. So you should start with the values and then clearing the goals. What if, for example, there are things in life that you don't really enjoy doing, but you have to do them, for example, for work, and you have to set a goal for that? Can you go the other way around? Like, you have this goal of something that you don't really enjoy and look for a value inside it so that to make it more enjoyable?
Yeah. I often use the metaphor, the analogy of brushing your teeth. So when I was a kid, the only reason why
you did not like brushing your teeth?
No. The only reason why I did it is because my parents said, if you don't, you know, you're going to be in trouble. So in a sense, the value behind it was I didn't want to get in trouble, or I didn't want to limit my freedom, or my freedom to watch TV or to play video games. So if I didn't brush my teeth, then something was going to be taken away from me. So the motivation there was to brush my teeth so my parents wouldn't take something away from me. Okay.
Yes, but here I identify a negative motivation.
Right. So
what if people are motivated from positive?
No. So yeah. So what happens when we become adults? Most adults I know brush their teeth. Do you?
Yes. Okay. It's pretty common here as well.
So my parents don't call me up and say, Damon, did you brush your teeth this morning?
Okay.
All right. So why do I still do it? Well, because I'm old enough to understand, and I've been old enough to understand for a while. You hit a certain age where you start to value your breath smelling good, especially when you start noticing who you're attracted to, and you want to make sure, you know, your breath smells good around that person. If you've ever had a cavity, and you know what that feels like to have that drilled on, or to have a shot inside your mouth to numb up your mouth. So these things start to happen. You start to recognize that there's a value to keeping your teeth clean, including having good, strong teeth for the rest of your life. So the value, you could say, is health is behind it. So what do? We really stop thinking about brushing our teeth, and we just do it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it just becomes a natural thing that we do. We don't negotiate with ourselves and say, do I want to brush my teeth this morning or no? We just do it. Okay. So when you're talking about things that you don't like, you used work as an example.
Yes. Well, in my personal case, I'm thinking about the thesis I'm working on. So basically, I'm supposed to make an app in a programming language that I don't truly enjoy. I have to learn it, and it seems to be pretty difficult. And I have to do it because I have to finish my college, and I want a beautiful degree with high grades. And still, I feel like when I have free time and I should invest my time working on it, I would rather just do something else and find, okay, that's more important than the thesis, when actually it's not.
Okay. Well, then first of all, getting clear about that, what's important, right? So you want to do your thesis, and you said you want a degree.
Yes.
Okay. So what's important about having a degree?
I believe it's important for my career further.
And what's important about that, though?
I will be successful. I can earn a lot of money and have a good life. Like,
success is a value.
true.
A good life and is
Career.
really broad. Yeah. So, and career is not really a value. It'd be what's important about having a good career.
A good lifestyle.
Good lifestyle. So that's where the value is. So now there may still be some resistance. You know, if we looked at you when the moment happens where you're resisting doing your thesis, we could start unpacking that and saying, okay, so what is the resistance? So if you can do that right now, think about the last time this happened. We can kind of go through this. The last time you were going to sit down to work on your thesis and you didn't. You did something else instead.
I have it in mind.
Okay. So there was some sort of resistance, right?
Yes.
Okay. So all resistance is another unconscious part of you that values something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that resistance when it came up?
Yes.
Okay. So what was a positive intent of that resistance?
I feel it more negative than positive. So
Start there.
It's not very. So I know that it will be hard, and I have to learn first before coding the actual app. And I believe that searching and getting so many bugs and trying to fix it would just be. It will take a long time, and it will get me frustrated.
Okay.
And I will just avoid that until maybe it will be too late.
So that part of you doesn't want you to get frustrated.
Exactly.
Okay. So what does it want for you instead?
I would like just to enjoy it. Like, look at this activity more like I'm studying something new. I enjoy it. I would like to make it work. And when I see something that works, that feels good. It's just that getting to the point when you finally see something moving inside there and you see something on the screen, like an output from the program, that's a good feeling. But all the way to get there can be very frustrating.
All right. So this part of you doesn't want you to be frustrated. It wants you to enjoy the process.
Yes.
Okay. And so joy is a good value. But if you don't do the process at all, you can't enjoy the process.
No. I do something else and
Okay.
that I feel more.
So
more enjoyable.
What we would do here in this situation is we do more of a parts integration based on your values. We chunk up to the values, and we have to just align or gain some. We have to negotiate with a part of it to say, okay, if we don't do anything at all, then nothing happens, and that will take away from your joy, because if you don't do your thesis, what happens? You won't get a diploma, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah. So all these negative things start to happen, which will affect your joy.
True.
Yeah. So sometimes we have to negotiate with the part and basically explain this to the part. And the thing is the reason why resistance feels like it does is because it's unconscious, and it's just a matter of bringing it into consciousness. What a lot of people do is they resist resistance, which just burns you out even faster and it makes you want to procrastinate because you feel tired and you don't want to do anything. So if you're not conscious of it, that's the natural reaction, is that, oh, this doesn't feel good, and it's going to get in the way of doing what I want to do, so I'm just going to push it away. So that's resisting resistance. That's driving the resistance further into unconsciousness, but it doesn't go away. You can't, you can't address it that way. It's not going to go away, and it will only push back. So when it's unconscious, that's when it's really nasty. And then that's when it makes you start doing things that really get in the way and sabotage you. A lot of times when you least expect it, because it's driven further into unconsciousness. But if you bring it up, you bring it out, make friends with it, and link it to your higher level values, which it wants for you. It wants you to have joy. It's just that it has a more short-term perspective of how to do that. And you can give it a little more long-term perspective and say, look, if we just do this and we get it done, even if there's problems along the way, it's still linked to joy, because you can think about the joy of having it done. Yeah, having it done and then getting your diploma and all of those things. So a matter of just chunking up to your highest level values.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people might be saying, well, it's not that easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I would say that it's simple. It's a simple process, but I would not say that it's easy, because it's not. Sometimes we get really frustrated, and that emotion kind of takes over.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a while to sit with that, calm down, and then start. This is an intellectual process, so you have to let the emotion subside and then start this intellectual process. But if you notice, like, I never get frustrated, right?
Yeah, especially in traffic. Never.
Never in traffic, and never with technology.
No,
like,
no.
I am so good with technology.
You're so friendly and patient.
It's amazing. Like, I even amaze myself with technology. It just no. So I certainly don't say these things trying to pretend like I don't run into this. Of course, it's difficult, especially when you get frustrated, because, like I said, the emotion comes up, and it's hard to think. It's hard to be rational. It's hard to sit down and say, okay, well, what are my values around this? So it's like, take a break, take a few deep breaths, take a walk. I like to take walks. That's usually what calms me down, and then you can do that process.
That's nice.
Chris is saying, hey, you too. Hey, Chris.
Hello.
So just a reminder, if people are coming on now, we are in Oradea, Romania.
Yes.
It's pretty noisy out here. It's not a big city, but we had dogs barking, we had sirens going. But actually, I hear more sirens in Santa Cruz than I do here.
There's a hospital pretty close. Maybe that's why.
Okay.
The ambulances come here, and there are plenty of houses. People like having dogs to protect their houses.
But it's quite a nice country. If you haven't been to Romania, I recommend it.
I do as well. Oradea is very, very nice.
Santa Cruz is nice too.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
Different.
I like Santa Cruz. Been living there for 11 years. Yeah, almost 11 years. 11 years in June. But it is amazing. You hear lots of sirens. It's a town of 55,000 people. But I think they call the cops or the fire department for like almost anything. This door is going to annoy me. Just see it in the background.
What were you talking about? Frustrating? It's just a door.
But I'm laughing and I'm smiling. So I'm dealing with it, right?
Okay, that's good. You're making progress.
Yes. So goal setting. And for example, I set a goal to come here. And here I am. But I also know what I want out of this. And I think this is just the most important thing you can do when you set out to do anything. I know how much joy travel brings to me. And if something were to come up, though, that, for whatever reason, crisis, an emergency or whatever, I know my values behind it. So it's easy to let go of something. I don't want to say that, because I have a hard time letting go of stuff too when it doesn't work out. But it gets easier to let go of things when they get in the way. So something had gotten in my way of coming here, and then I could do the whole thing where I just did with you and say, okay, so what are my values behind this? And joy is one of my values behind travel. And I say, okay, if I understand that I need to go deal with this other thing, and the value behind dealing with this other thing will bring me joy, and then I can unplug from the expectation or the goal that I set, and then plug it in somewhere else. And that's where what I talk about with strategy. So strategy is how you're going to go about doing that. Mm-hmm. So the goal is the end point of the outcome that we're looking for. The other thing that people do is they get focused on the strategy so much. If you only have one strategy, it's easy to get caught up in that and say, okay, and I did this a few times in marketing. So I have a marketing plan. This is the way I'm going to do things. I've thought it out really, really well, and it doesn't work. But if I only have one strategy to do that, this is extremely frustrating. And if you only had one strategy, then you've got nothing if it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So then you go through this. That's probably one of the most frustrating processes. So create multiple strategies. Don't emphasize one strategy. That's, again, where you're pumping a lot of emotion into one way of doing something, and then it doesn't work. And then, of course, it brings up a bunch of other negative emotions.
Yes, but for example, if you have more strategies and you focus on all of them,
don't focus on all of them.
Okay, but like, okay, you focus on one strategy and you have in mind that you have others as well. Isn't like you somehow know that the first one won't work, so that you have like backup plans?
It's not knowing the first one won't work. It's you pick the one that you think is most likely to work, and then you have all the backup plans for if it does, if it doesn't work, you have.
Yes, so from the very first step, you consider that the first one won't work, so you need those other strategies as backup. Why don't you just focus on the first one, and when it doesn't work, you look for a backup?
Let's go to a question.
I can
No,
put a question mark at the end.
So I'm not saying to focus on multiple strategies.
Okay.
I'm just saying have other strategies available. It's always good to have at least 3 possible ways you could do anything.
Also, basically, have in mind that maybe 2 of them will fail. So
It's not about failing.
okay. Just
It's not about
strategies.
failing. It's about just having a backup plan. And
Okay.
you can only focus on one at a time. Yeah, I don't recommend. I mean, unless we actually have something, an example of what we're talking about is hard. It's hard to talk about it because you can implement more than one strategy to do something.
Mhm.
That's possible. But I would say most of the time there's usually one prevailing strategy, and you want to focus on that one strategy and test it out. But the other thing too is setting time frames. Like, I'm going to try this strategy for 3 months, and then I'm going to check in and say, okay, did this get us closer to what we want to do? Or I say we, like a royal we, all of my parts and all of my personalities. But I guess I'm thinking now in business and with marketing, we need to set frames on it and say, okay, when do we exit this strategy?
Mm-hmm.
If we get what we want, then we might need to exit the strategy, or we need to then implement the same strategy but long term.
Mm-hmm.
Or we may need to say, check in and we say, okay, this strategy did not work, so we exit and we want to replace it with another strategy. It's good. It's really, really good if you already have another strategy in mind to replace that strategy with.
Okay, but I believe that even during the first strategy, if you see that it doesn't work, you can come up with others on the way.
Yeah, I think it's
if necessary.
Right, and if you're really plugged into the value rather than the goal and the outcome, and not so much the strategy, it makes it very easy to switch out strategies. But I've seen people, not for myself this has happened a lot, but I've also seen a lot of other people they fall in love with the strategy. And when the strategy doesn't work, they either ignore that it's not working and double down on the strategy, which is not good, obviously, or they're crushed and devastated that the strategy didn't work, and then they feel lost. They often put it on themselves and make it about some something to do with their worth, their value as a person. And these things are obviously very destructive and are not going to help you, move forward. So they're only going to make you go backwards. So it's very, very important to put most of your emphasis on the value. What is it you're after? A lot of people call that your big why. Why are you doing this? What's important about this? What is it going to do for you? And go really, really deep with that. And then the goals and the strategies are really interchangeable. They should the purpose of the goals and the strategies should only be to serve those values. And when you focus on it that way, it becomes easier to exchange goals, throw goals out, change them, throw strategies out, change the strategies. And a siren. I'm thinking maybe we should have done this outside. But we'd probably still hear them inside as well.
Yeah, most probably.
All right. So again, if you're interested in this process and going really deep with this process and basically aligning your life with your values, I go over all of this in my membership program. And really, I walk you down this process of listing your values, setting your goals, and I don't know, when I finally was able to put this all together, it took years. It took years of NLP training. It took years of understanding why I was getting frustrated, why I wasn't getting what I wanted, why I seemed to push things away. And a lot of it was reverse engineering all of that. Okay, well, if everything I'm doing seems to give me the opposite of what I want, then just do the opposite of what I'm doing. But it took more than that. It took understanding what was happening. And then it gets to the point where it's not like I have to focus so much on goals. I'm very well aware of what my highest values are, and I'm well aware of what my values are as I go from context to context. My values in my personal life are going to be different than my values in my career. So the more I understand this, the more clarity I have around it, the more I'm naturally going to attract what I want. And I only say that because it's more like I'm drawn to these things, and it feels like they're just appearing in my life. It feels like they're just attracted to my life, but it's really, I think it's more me being drawn to it than the other way around. But it has that feeling when people talk about the law of attraction and The Secret, where it feels like you're just manifesting and things are appearing in your life. I don't think it's that passive. I think when you're getting what you want, I think you're engaged and you're active, but it doesn't always have to feel like work. It doesn't always have to feel like effort. And I think that's another problem, depending on what culture you come from. The culture I come from, or my parents raised me to say, you got to work hard. You got to work hard. And they drilled this into my head. No, you don't always have to work hard. Sometimes things come easier to you, or maybe you did work hard, but it didn't feel like work, especially when you're doing something that you really enjoy. And I've actually, because at certain times in my life, I didn't feel like I worked hard for it. I actually unconsciously sabotaged myself and basically pushed these things out of my life because I didn't feel like I deserved them. I didn't feel like I was worthy of them. And this just comes from self-worth issues. Mm-hmm. And I suffered from that for many years. I mean, most of my life, and finally resolved that stuff. You don't seem to me that you suffer from self-worth issues.
No.
You have a very healthy...
I have a high self-esteem. I have only good opinion about myself.
That's good. I wish I was like that. Most people I know suffer self-worth issues and self-esteem issues, and nobody likes to admit that. Nobody likes to admit they have self-esteem issues, but I certainly suffered from that for a long time. I knew that I was valuable. I liked myself. It didn't show up like that. And we think about self-esteem issues, we mainly think about that with kids, and we try to help them build their self-esteem. And when we're adults, though, I think it takes a different form. And I know people who suffer self-esteem issues, but if I came right out and asked them, do you suffer from low self-esteem? They would tell me absolutely not. I think it just shows up a lot different when you're an adult. You're taught so much when you're a kid, especially if my generation and probably the generations that have come afterward, to build up your self-esteem, to like yourself, to love yourself. But so you have this in your mind, like, of course I love myself. Of course I like myself. But then you feel unworthy, or you feel like you don't deserve something. It's all the same stuff. It is low self-esteem. It is low self-worth. Even big achievers, top CEOs. I coach CEOs who multi-million-dollar businesses, and they're suffering from imposter syndrome. Are you familiar with that term?
No.
So imposter syndrome is when you're very successful, mm-hmm. and especially if you're in a leadership role, and you feel like you don't deserve it, you don't feel like you're good enough to be in that role, but you're doing it. Like you are taking on that role, you are doing it. It's just your confidence is so low, especially people who are experience like almost like an overnight success, even though they've worked hard for years, but suddenly it finally happens, and then they're just not ready for it. And so they have this thing called imposter syndrome, where they don't feel like they deserve it. They don't feel like they're really as special, mm-hmm. or that they have the capabilities and the skills that they're being paid so much money to do. Mm-hmm. And so it can feel, it can be hard to deal with. Well, they certainly, well, I won't say everyone, but most of the time they do have those skills, because the bottom line in any business, especially a successful one, is making money and having good talent to help the business do that. And so chances are, if you have been elevated to that level of maybe like a leadership role and you're very successful, even if you don't feel it, chances are you do have those capabilities, but you don't feel confident about it. So they feel like imposters. And I've coached several people through that. That is another self-worth issue. And maybe they didn't really feel like they had low self-esteem before. They didn't have self-worth issues before, because before they were very successful, to them, they felt like that's what they deserved. That's what they were worthy of. But suddenly something happens and they finally their work pays off and they start having all that success, and they haven't been able to make that internal adjustment to, well, yeah, this is because I'm receiving this, of course I deserve it, of course I'm worthy of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that happens. I mean, that happens to a lot of people. And I think when people talk about self-worth, self-esteem issues, it's hard to admit that. It's just really, nobody wants to say, yeah, I suffer from that.
Mm-hmm.
We think of it as something you go through when you're a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're an adult, it's like you get beyond that. But I don't think it's true. I don't think it just magically changes when you turn 18 and suddenly it's all, it all works out. So a lot of people won't set goals, or they'll set very low goals because they fear the disappointment
Mm-hmm.
of not achieving them. And if they already have low self-esteem, it's scary to set a high goal and not achieve it, because if you don't, it's even going to be harder on their self-esteem if they don't achieve it. But that's why I keep saying, get the emphasis off the goal. And I would set goals that are really lofty, like really high goals that, I mean, if you're not setting goals that are slightly out of what you feel like are out of your reach, then what's the point of really setting the goal? Because to me, the point of setting the goal, of course, you want it to fulfill some sort of value. But like I said, you can really fulfill your values at any time. That's another live show. But so set goals that really stretch you. If you go to the gym and you want to increase your strength, well, you need to keep, setting your sights and your goals to weight that you can't yet lift.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're only setting goals that you can already achieve,
it's not really a goal. It's just like, I'm gonna do something that I'm capable of.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, well, what's the point? But people will do this to kind of, I guess, soothe their self-esteem, or soothe the inner wound that's created the low self-worth. But I would say, just the opposite. You should be shooting for things that are out of your reach. And then if you don't achieve them, and again, if you're doing all this in the context of your values, which when you put all your values together, that creates a vision. You're doing all of this in the context of your vision, and if you don't achieve the goal, it's much easier to deal with. Much easier to deal with when the emphasis is put on the values, not on the goal itself. So yes, definitely, go out of range for yourself. Set a goal that you actually don't think that you can achieve. That's not, I don't want to say impossible, but it's possible, but you don't think you can actually do it, and then go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you do achieve it, it's really exciting. If you don't achieve it, you have gotten something done. You've made some progress. And if you're doing it in alignment with your values, it should be enjoyable every step of the way. The achievement of a goal, if you're not enjoying the process, something's not right. And if you're not enjoying the process and you set goals and you achieve them, and you do this a few times a year, or maybe you do it once a year, but throughout the process you're not enjoying it, well, what's the point? Because then it just makes your life miserable, because the moment of achieving it is very, very small. The process of achieving it is the longest part. And if you're not enjoying that process, then yeah, it just makes life miserable. But I know people like this. I know people who are just overachievers. And again, this usually comes from low self-worth issues, low self-esteem, but they can achieve. And they feel like if they ever stop achieving, then their self-esteem is going to really crash, and then they have to deal with their self-worth issues. They finally have to deal with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But so they achieve, but their lives are not enjoyable because they're always working, and the things that they're working on, they're not enjoying it because it's not aligned with their values. But it looks good. It looks good on paper. Anyway, we probably should wind this down. I'll answer a few questions. So go ahead and type them in here, and we will do that. Do you have any more questions?
Let's just make like a sum up of this. Do you believe
I forgot everything that I said.
Do you believe there's like a recipe or steps you should take when you set a goal? Like, we know that we should pay attention to the values. Like, what steps would you recommend people to have when they set a goal?
Well, I go in depth with this in my membership program, and even in my NLP practitioner program. There's and you can probably find this anywhere on the internet, is the outcome frame, or a well-formed outcome. That's what NLP uses. I add more to it. I think, but it's a good start. It's a good start to use that because it does go into values. It gets precise about who, when, where, and how, and so you get specific about the context. So a well-formed outcome, I think, is a good place to go for the steps on that. I think before setting a goal, I think this is the part that most people skip. You just need to go out and try things. I see a lot of people setting goals in something. I'll give you an example. So I go to VidCon every year. The first time I went was just because I'd never been, and I create around YouTube and I create a lot of digital videos. So I wanted to see what a convention or a conference would be like, where that's what people are there for, and that's what they have a lot of these creators there. And so now I only go because my daughter wants to go. I got kind of tired of it. But what you encounter so much in VidCon is people who want to be YouTubers. They want to be famous YouTubers. And they haven't even made a video yet. They've not even made a video yet and put it up on their YouTube channel. Or you could do the same thing on Facebook. Facebook's gotten, we'll let the siren pass. That one's really close.
Yeah. Well, it's Saturday. Maybe people get crazy on weekends. Who knows?
Okay. So you meet all these people because it's a conference and people like to network. And well, first of all, I think the first time I went, I only had 6,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. People thought that was amazing, and I was like, it's only 6,000. Like, there's people with millions.
Yeah.
But it turned out these people hadn't even done their first video yet. So of course they thought 6,000 was impressive. And so I'd question them about this. I was like, almost like saying, how do you know you're going to even like it if you won't even try it? But in their mind, they're already superstars. Like, they're already the YouTube star in their head. I mean, they know logically that they're not, but they've already sort of have that avatar, in their mind of being a famous YouTuber. And they're going to all these panels discussing how to nail the sponsorship deal. And it's like, wait a minute, why are you even concerned about a sponsorship deal when you haven't even made your first video? It's like, go try it, go make some videos, find out if you enjoy it. And then if you really enjoy it, then set a goal and say, I'm going to make X amount of videos. And don't set a goal on things that you can't control. You can't control how many subscribers you get. You can't control how many views you get. But you can set a goal on what kind of video I'm going to make, how many videos I'm going to make. Those things I can control. That's the other thing about goals. I should have gone into that more. But set goals based on things that you have control over. You setting a goal to take someone out on a date, a particular person. Well, you don't know if that person is going to say yes or no. You have no control over that. Now, the goal you can set is, the goal I set is, I'm going to ask that person out. That I have control over, but I don't have control over what they're going to do. So that's the other thing about goals. Make sure you're setting goals that you do have control over. Another one would be health. You have control over how much weight you lose, and you have control over how much you eat, how much you exercise. I always found that as a place that I could go to, actually, to build my self-esteem, because I've been into health since I was much younger, and there were times where I worked a lot and as an adult and started to gain weight, and my cholesterol went up, and I was like, okay, it's time to set a goal. And I always felt good about that because I had control over it. It was hard to set a sales goal, though, because you don't know if people are going to say yes, and you don't know if people are going to buy what you're putting out there. But you can set a goal for how many appointments you're going to ask for, or how many phone calls you're going to make. You can set goals like that. But setting goals with things that you have no control over is another road to disappointment. I totally didn't answer your question, did I?
Well, I got my answers out of there.
So I would say,
outframe.
First step in setting a goal is make sure you've tried these things out and you enjoy them. So I talk about exercise a lot in health. Okay, so if you want to set a health goal, maybe before setting that health goal, how much weight you want to lose, or how low you want to get your cholesterol, or your blood pressure, any of those things, find an activity that you enjoy doing then set the goal, because then you know how much to expect of yourself to do that. And if you enjoy the activity, like I hate running. Like
I love running.
Yeah, no, you like running. I know a lot of people who do. There's some people that they have running clubs, and I think they actually get like kind of a high out of running.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't. It's never done anything for me. So if I thought, okay, I want to set a health goal and I want to lose 20 pounds, and then I go, well, okay, well, how am I going to do this? And I say, oh, I'll just go running. Well, I don't like running. Good chance I'm not going to hit my goal. I didn't like yoga the first 2 times I tried it.
Okay.
And so I gave it one more shot, and it just so happened the type of yoga that I tried, Ashtanga, the third time I tried yoga, I really liked it. And so I didn't even think about a health goal. I was just like, I really enjoy doing this. So I kept showing up and doing it. And of course, I lost a lot of weight and I got much healthier. So it's things like that. So the first step, I would say, just find something you're going to enjoy doing that's in line with the goal. And that'll make the goal setting part much, much easier, because then you'll know what to expect of yourself. If you really enjoy doing something that's going to get you there, you can say, okay, I'm going to do this 3 times a week. I'm going to do this 5 or 7 times a week. So that's the first step. So the first step is not to set the goal. First step is find something you enjoy doing that's in the direction of the goal that you're thinking of before you set it. Second step. Wait, I had it in my mind.
Values. Do you want to throw out words?
No, because I think actually.
How do you set a goal?
Yeah, so there was another part to this, though. We'll go with set a goal.
Okay.
So maybe I'll set a random goal. Maybe I'll just say, yeah, here's what I want. Okay. Let's use the business. Okay. So I've been doing this long enough to know that I enjoy it. I know I enjoy creating content. That's my favorite thing to do. So this video is an example of that. The videos I've created for YouTube and grown my YouTube channel, all examples of me creating content. And then I create programs that I sell, a membership program. Remember, tomorrow, I think? Tomorrow? Wait, April 1st is?
In 2 days. March has 31 days.
So I'm really off my regular schedule, too. So I think it's morning time in California right now.
Yes, it is.
And it's evening time here. Anyway, April 1st is when that $1 promotion ends. So I love creating content. And
it's not a joke.
It's not a joke. So I love creating content. And so this is an example of it, but I also create online trainings. And that's just another example of creating content. So I already know that I really enjoy that. I also know about how much time it takes to create videos, to create programs. You know, I've done it enough times, I have enough experience to know what to expect of myself and how long something's going to take. Okay, so I've got a lot of information about this. So what if I said I'm going to set a goal of making, I don't know. I just said don't set goals on things that you can't control, and you actually a lot of times can't control exactly how much money you make.
And views?
Well, there's that. That's one thing, because I've done that a lot. I've tried to set goals for subscribers and viewers, but again, you don't control that. And in money, it's kind of hard, because you have a tremendous amount of influence over how much money you make, but you don't control necessarily how much money you make, because you don't know how many people are going to buy something you create.
Yes. There's
ways. I'm trying to explain this without getting too complex, because there are ways that you can very much influence. You know, like I'm not going to make a training if I don't know if people are going to buy it. I need to know first, and then once that happens, then I know what to expect later. So I can say I want to make a certain training, and I can maybe set that goal, and then I can go to my subscribers, my followers, and say, hey, does everybody want this training if I make it? And then they say yes. And so, okay, now I can make it. And then I can set a goal behind how much money I want to make off that training. So there's a lot of control, but there's not complete control. And then I can say, all right, now I listed the values. And I say, okay, well, what is important about making this training? What is important about making the sales off of this training? And then I can go into, well, it sustains me. It gives me a living. And then It gives me a comfortable living. It gives, so I can go further and further. But what I'll start to realize in unpacking the values is that the monetary goal actually doesn't go very deep.
Mm-hmm.
Other than just sustaining life and being able to pay my bills and buy groceries and things like that, money is more of a survival thing. So this isn't going to motivate me tremendously. I'm just not one of those people that's tremendously motivated by money.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people who are. We were at the Traffic and Conversion Summit.
Yes.
Like those entrepreneurs, a lot of those people are motivated by making money. And they're not greedy. It's just that they're really good at it. They really enjoy it. I mean, some of them might be greedy, but the impression that I got from most of them is they're not greedy. And they probably give away a lot of their money to charity. It's not the point. The point is they like doing it. I'm not quite like that. What I think about, though, is I love learning. Because I love learning, I love teaching. And so when I'm making a program, I'm thinking to myself about the people it's going to reach. And this goes much deeper for me. So this makes it more motivating. And so if I put my emphasis on a monetary goal, I would probably lack motivation at some point. I know I did when I was in the insurance business. Like they were trying to, they call it leadership. The corporate people were always trying to incentivize us with more and more money. But at a certain point, like more money didn't motivate me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do that in my business, yeah, there is value behind it, but it's finite. But if I go to the thing that's bigger than myself, this idea that like, okay, I've gone deep with a lot of these ideas. I've learned a lot by exploring this within myself and then doing it with clients, coaching clients, and then realizing, okay, I can only reach so many people one-to-one. But if I put something out there, a training out there that reaches a lot of people and solves a big problem for a lot of people, then there's tremendous value in that. And that excites me, just thinking about it, like being able to reach a lot of people and help them solve a problem that was once a problem for me and is not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really motivating. So my monetary goal, we've been doing this for a while. Wow. So my monetary goal then shifts more toward, well, how many people can I reach and help solve this problem? And so this is why this process is so important. I know I've kind of rambled in different directions about it, but the reason why this process is so important is the more you unpack this, the more you're going to find that your goals are going to shift, and you're going to find goals that really excite you and will get you through the resistance, because it's all a process of discovery. It's all a process of exploring. It's all a process of learning, and learning is probably the most motivating thing. Now, I know it motivates me. It doesn't necessarily motivate everyone the same amount, but in general, learning motivates because it's progress.
Mm-hmm.
I went. You don't know who Jim Rohn is, do you?
No.
Yeah. So Jim Rohn is the guy who basically got Tony Robbins his start.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Robbins was a kid. He heard Jim Rohn speak, and he said, "That's what I want to do." And I got to go see Jim Rohn speak when I was 16. My dad took me to see him. He's passed away since. And somebody asked him about motivation. He also brought up Tony Robbins. He's like, so somebody asked him about motivation because Tony Robbins he still is, but was very famous at that time as well. And he was, known as the guy who motivates people. And Jim Rohn said it's really not real motivation what Tony's doing. He said real motivation. He said if you motivate somebody without teaching them something, and I believe Tony teaches. I'm going to get a bunch of like hate comments coming my way, but I think at the time Tony was known more for like motivating people, not teaching people. Now of course he has programs where he teaches, and he said if you don't teach somebody something but you motivate them, then you've got a motivated idiot. He said what motivates you is when you learn, and you're learning something, and I think he didn't just mean books. I think books definitely, but learning something as an experience, taking action, doing stuff. When you learn, it's motivating, so you keep going, keep doing more and more and more. And so that's what this process is that I keep talking about. That's mainly in the membership program. Is that process will motivate you as you go forward, because you're going to learn more and more about yourself. And as you learn more and more about yourself and what drives you and what motivates you, just brings so much clarity to this. And when you have clarity about what you want, then it's so much easier to get it. It's much easier to create it. went on another tangent, didn't I? Okay. So, man, the time goes by fast. If you have any questions.
Oh, this Lucia, one of my friends.
Oh, it's one of your friends.
Hello.
Look, Ryan is one of my friends too. Hey, Ryan. All right. Do I have any questions, or do you have any questions for me? Wait, I think sometimes there's a delay, so we'll wait for a little bit. But anyway, do you have any other questions? That's not going to send me off on a tangent. This was totally your fault.
Yes, of course. I'm asking too many questions, or I'm asking one and then one more details.
So if you're just tuning in, we are in Romania.
A very beautiful country
in
Eastern Europe.
I almost feel like taking the camera and showing it, but then it'd be hard to reposition it. It took so much time trying to get it just
You can take a picture and post it later.
Yeah, I'll be posting pictures. So
or even more pictures, of course.
On Instagram.
Everywhere.
On Facebook. And you can't post pictures on...
You can make a movie out of videos.
Well, of course, we're going to make videos. Well, we're going to make videos here too. I'll take some B-roll of... I haven't been doing that. To do that. Remind me.
Sure.
B-roll.
Sure. That's my job.
Okay. I don't see any questions coming in. So, all right, I think we're going to sign off. No questions? All right. Take care, everybody. Signing off from Romania. I think next time we do this, we'll be in Budapest.
Yes.
We'll be in Budapest, Hungary. So tune in for that one as well. And I don't even know what the subject's going to be yet.
We'll see.
Bold action. The next video coming out on Wednesday is about taking action. So there's Danny. So Danny, you were watching me on both YouTube and Facebook because I see you here as well.
Like your comments, not you.
Well, what?
His comments, not
she. Have a great trip. Thank you.
Thank you.
But no, she was here, and then now she's on Facebook. Cool. Getting doubling up in stereo. All right. Overachiever, yeah. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for sitting in on this. And like I said, we'll be seeing you from Budapest in a week. Take care, everybody.